All right, Shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Hakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect of Israel. And this lesson, is going into the fact that, the curses are generational, man. All right? I don't remember too much of what I was thinking about when I had initially thought of the lesson, but definitely going into the fact that these curses, they're generational, man. Okay? The curses that we face as Israelites, okay, they are generational. This is the book of Deuteronomy 28, starting in verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, right? To keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Read it again. Deuteronomy 28 and 45. Moreover, all these curses, from verses 16 to 68, shall come upon thee, the Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, and shall pursue thee, which means to follow you wherever you go in this world, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which means laws, which he commanded thee. So, basically, covenant was made, all right, with us Israelites, between the Heavenly Father and once again us Israelites, back in the ancient world, okay? And, to keep the laws, and if we broke these laws, if we broke the laws of the Lord, right, then we would have all these curses on us, okay? So if that's the case, so that's the case, well, let me not say if, but the case is rather that we broke those curses. It's like we broke the laws of the Lord as a people. Okay, now the curses are on us, right? Verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. A sign to show that we're the Israelites, because that's who the curses apply to. If you have a contract with somebody, that's what a covenant is like. It's like an agreement, a contract. If you do this, this happens, If you do X, Y, it's an agreement, okay? And a contract is only between you and the other person you signed it with, you see, or had the contract with, all right? So, we broke it, all right? And so being that these curses are on us, it shows us that we're the Israelites, okay? That's that sign. It says, and upon thy seed forever, and upon the seed of Israel, man, okay? Meaning what? The descendants of the Israelites would go experience these curses, okay? The descendants of the Israelites would experience these curses, written from verses 16 through 68, all right? In this chapter, being that we're waking up to, our people have woken up to who they are, right? This chapter shows that, we're the Israelites, because once again, the sign and everything. Also, being that, Salakia, because, as so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, we face a struggle, we face overwhelming struggle, as a people, right? And, before we knew we were Israelites, hearing this, Deuteronomy 28, it described our condition perfectly. You see? It described our condition perfectly. And this shows that we are the Israelites. This is one of the chapters, main chapters that we use to prove who the real Israelites are. Okay? This chapter right here. But, and also via reincarnation, our We we are our forefathers, man, coming back, via reincarnation. All right, we are our forefathers, okay? You know, but then let me just say it like that, okay? We also you can also say we're the descendants as well, all right? Because our forefathers, going back to this time to where the covenant was made, they had children and the children kept having children, et cetera, and here we are today, you know. So we are the descendants of of the Israelites, you see, and in the different captivities we faced, like Assyrian, Babylonian, Medo-Persian, Greek, Roman, these curses, affected us, man. Okay, these curses affected us. All right, and being in this captivity today, these curses still affect us. You see, it doesn't have a cutoff point. You know, being because somebody might say that the curses, it was fulfilled back then, but it doesn't have a cutoff point until Yahweh Shai returns. So that would leave a person who doesn't believe we're the Israelites to the question, who was the Israelites? You know, and if you look at all these other nations of people, they have man, they have a lot of stuff. A lot of these things don't really fit them. Okay, they really fit so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans the most. All right, we're the ones it fits. You see, we're going through, and it says once again, and upon thy seed forever. The seed or the descendants of the Israelites, these curses will come upon them. That's why you hear Jake trying to say, we're trying to break out of generational curses. Because, for example, right, Jake will want to, make a bunch of wealth or, stop doing something that their parents have been doing, For example, they might say something like, they want to, I'm going to get a curse, actually, an example. Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother. Bear with me 1 second. Right? It says, toward the wife of his bosom. Right? Give me 1 second. And it says, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave. Okay? And, that also goes into how, they say so-called black men, right? They, they're known for leaving their children, you see? But now, Jake might come along and say, I want to break a generational curse, which is, for example, if their family got a history of the men, if a so-called black man's family has a history of men leaving their children in the family, then, they would try to break that by being there, which I mean is a good intent. I'm just giving a small example, all right, of a generational curse, okay? But under the curses, man, you see, we're under the curses and we ain't getting up out of them fully until Yahweh Shai returns. When Yahweh Shai returns, ain't no more curses going to be on us whatsoever, forevermore, all right? No more curses on us after Yahweh Shai returns, okay? But this, explains, but being that these curses are generational, this explains, why Jake can't do certain things, you see? Why Jake can't, when Jake still gets harassed, Jake live in the other parts of the world. Hey, it said, verse 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee, and chase you. So no matter where you go, because now it's, one of the hot things is to travel, even though that's coming to an end now, with all these flight delays, and the government shutdown and all that. It's coming to an end, right? So, with but basically one of the hot topics out there is living abroad. Okay, living abroad. Jake will move out of America and try to go back to Africa or something like that, or or let me say, go into Africa because we're not Africans, all right? Or they'll try to live somewhere else like China, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Thailand, or something like that, over there in Europe or whatever, or Asia. You know, they'll try to live in places like that. Okay, but they'll still face, people coming after them, harassing them. They'll still face all these different things. People looking down on them, calling them, the N-word, etc. You know, why? Because the curses are still following us. You see, it's not going to be until the kingdom that the curses are gone, man. Okay, let me prove that real quick. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 21, no, 22, and verse 3. And this is talking about in the kingdom. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of, and there shall be no more curse, but the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. Okay? So in the kingdom is when, the curses are going to be lifted up off of us. Okay, and it's going to start with the elect when Yahweh Shai returns. Okay? The curses are going to be up off of us, man. Alright? It's going to be over with. See, but until then, this is what we got to go. This is what we got to face. This is what we got to face, man. This is why we still go through certain things we go through. This hell that we catch. Our people still catch to this day. The curses, still, to this very day. So, I mean, this just got to bear it, man, because we put ourselves in this condition. Let me go back to that real quick. Slakia, this is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. And it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, right? And, don't get confused because of the wording here, how it's worded. This is, like, kind of like Old English a little bit, all right? But this is the King James Version. But it said, but it shall come to pass, meaning it's going to happen, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, if you don't listen to the Lord, Yahweh, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I commanded this day. So he's saying Moses is telling us that it's going to happen, it's going to come to pass, like it's going to happen that if you don't listen to the Lord and keep his laws, to keep his laws and everything, that what's going to happen? That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And then it goes into it, you see? So, and we didn't, we didn't keep the laws, So, these curses are on us. See, these curses are upon us, man. These curses are upon us. You see, so, hey, it's just something we got to bear. It's something we got to bear, man. And this is also one of the other reasons why, you don't want to really have children in this place. It's ultimately up to the Lord, man. All right, who gets born and who, doesn't. All right, and if you have children or not, okay. Once again, man's goings is of the Lord. But this is one of the things I was thinking about when I initially thought of this lesson. It's why it's, you don't want to really have children in this place, man. Okay, because they, they're gonna come back, living as it says in verse 19. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in. And when you're born into this world, you're born into a cursed world. And cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. And when you die, you cursed. When you leave out this world, you cursed. You see? So it's not, and then you come in here and your children are suffering and the curses are on them. Me personally, if I could help it, I'm not having children until the kingdom. Lord willing, if I could help it. Okay? But I don't see no time soon, no way, no how that's gonna be happening for me, man. This place is on its way out. Okay? I mean, for the brothers that do have children, it's no sweat. There's no sweat. Ain't no sweat. But hey, just trust in Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. He got you. He gave you them kids. He gave you those children. He'll provide you the resources to deal with them. To take care of them, and But ultimately, I just wanted to go and make a lesson on how these things is generational, man. You got a whole, for example, the brother Ward at the camp here, he talks about sometimes how, it'll be a nigga on the block, and then years pass, he get old now, you know, and maybe he goes off the block or whatever, or something like that. Roughly paraphrasing the brother's scenario. But then, you'll have a new group of niggas coming, and they'll be on the block, you see? And that's part of the curses, man. Gang banging, you'll have an old nigga that, was gang banging or whatever, and then time pass, he might still be doing it or might not, but then you'll have another group of young niggas coming and doing it. These curses are generational, man. Whereas you look at the heathen, children, like so-called white children, Asian, East Indian, Arab, they don't do these things. They don't be gang banging. They don't do that. Our people do. So-called Black, Latino, Native American, man. You'd be surprised. Okay, but those are some examples, man. How these these are some examples of how these curses are generational. They're upon our children. They're upon the descendants of the Israelites. Okay, so whether you could help it or not, if you had children, they will ultimately, if you being an Israelite, if you had children, they will ultimately be going through the curses too. You see, this is why we ultimately need out of this place, man. Yahweh Shai is called a savior for a reason. You see how much more we need Yahweh Shai? Because if not, ain't no other way we getting up out of this, man. This is a part of the contract. You see? But, hey, I just wanted to do a lesson on that. All right, and I have a low battery right now. All right, it's at 1%, so I'm going to just end it. So with that, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, everyone well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.